Hey guys, and welcome to the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report, the first podcast to bring you the local fishing report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. And I'm joined today with Captain Richard Rutland as my co-host. How we doing today, Captain Richard?
Man, doing good. Thank goodness we finally got 1 week of full sunshine.
I know, it's beautiful out today.
Golly, it looks like we don't have any rain in the forecast till like Sunday or Monday, something like that, and it still looks even like a light chance. But man, it's nice having some blue skies.
It is nice. Makes me want to go frolic, go for a boat ride.
Yeah, and today I think is the first day of spring too. So,
is it officially?
Yeah, I believe that's what my son told me on the way to school this morning. So I'll take his word for it.
He's smarter than we are, probably. Good deal, man. Well, this week's show is brought to us by KillerDock. Man, we went fishing on Monday. Me and Captain Patrick and Joe and Hank Shaw, and we got into them big old sheephead pretty good.
Goat roping.
Man, it was fun. I hadn't caught one in a long time, and those things fight.
That's some good action.
We brought them back to the island, and Hank Shaw, hunter, angler, gardener, cook, he cooked them up for us. Man, that's some fine victuals right there.
They're tasty. I love doing that. What's the West Indies salad deal with the sheephead instead of the crab meat?
Yep.
You can hardly tell a difference with that.
Yeah. Man, we cleaned all those sheephead on that KillerDock. Man, back in the day in charter fishing, I mean, you would get through cleaning fish, and you're disgusting.
You're just covered.
From your toes. I mean, you had to pretty much throw your shirt away every day. Really?
Yep.
I mean, I had fishing shirts designated just for, party boat fishing. Man, after I cleaned all those sheephead and we all cleaned the sheephead, nothing. There wasn't even a scale on the dock. And
it's amazing how it keeps.
And Hank scaled a bunch of them. There wasn't even a scale on the dock.
Wow.
It's awesome.
It's amazing how clean it all stays because, like I said, that negative angle, just barely a negative angle just to take all the slime and scales and stuff away from you.
Yep.
It's real nice. So it's not too bad where the fish is sliding away from you, but.
Oh, yeah, you can't even hardly tell.
Yep.
Unless you look at it or put a level on it.
That's right. Yep. I'm very impressed. I love mine.
Me too. Keeps you nice and dry. Mm-hmm. Jay said he was going to put mine last week, but we got busy. I had to travel some, and so did he. Maybe next week I'll get mine up.
Well, cool. Speaking of next week, we've got your sixth tournament coming up. So
Saturday.
Yep.
23rd.
That's right. March 23rd on Saturday. It's going to be down here at American Legion Post 251 in Fowl River. What gets me about it, why I'm so into it is what it's for. And it's for fallen officer Sean Tudor with the Mobile Police Department. He died probably,
way too young.
Yeah, about 2 months ago. Way too young.
Horrible.
Left a wife behind, and so that's what we're doing is raising money for her.
Yep.
Make sure she's taken care of. So
I'm definitely excited to be a part of that. I'll be there and looking forward to the crawfish. Was it $20?
Yep, $20 all you can eat crawfish. We're going to have 6 categories. I believe we've got sheephead, flounder, pompano, whiting, speckled trout, and redfish.
So you don't even need a boat.
Yep, that's right. Yeah, you could do a lot of that damage from the beach for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And then just something to remind everybody is that sheephead is going to be a 3-fish aggregate.
Nice.
And you can get your tickets at fishingchaos.com.
Perfect.
So should be fun. It's not. The cool thing about this is it's not really just a fishing tournament. It's going to be a benefit and event. So we're going to have live music up there. Yeah. We're going to have the lots of nice raffle items, including a Traeger grill and several. That's
a big ticket.
Oh yeah,
it's a big item.
It's a $1,700 grill.
Dang.
And then several fishing trips, custom fishing rods, and just an array of other things that everybody's going to want. So
cool. So y'all come on out and make a day of it.
That's right.
All right, man. Let's head on down to Angelo Depaola. He's going to give us the offshore report, the coastal connection. What's going on, Angelo?
Hey, what's happening, guys? Just down here enjoying a beautiful March day in Orange Beach. It looks like slack winds and flat seas down here.
It's beautiful for sure. Spring breakers starting to show up down there.
Man, I tell you, if you don't, this is my favorite time of year. We're in full-on transition mode. The spring break crowd has started to arrive. It's kind of hopping place right now. Mm-hmm. The weather, it's nice and warm without being too humid. It's got a little smell of spring in the air. The fish are starting to transition, and they are doing exactly what you would predict that they would do this time of year.
So what's been going on? What's been coming to the dock?
Everything. I'm sure Richard's talked about some of the inshore transition of fishing and what's happening there. And so we see some of that same things happening offshore. I know there was first cobia of the year, caught over on the Pensacola Beach Pier this week. Buddy of mine went earlier this week, caught a couple wahoos on the ledge. which is like classic pattern for what you would expect right about now. Starting to see some king mackerel over here and some Spanish mackerel, which just kind of says, hey, we're starting to see these first wave of fish and kind of following in spring patterns. My guess is the next person that gets offshore out here and goes targeting blue marlin, especially live baiting, somebody's going to have a really banner trip. And I would imagine bluefin tuna and stuff are not far behind. I would say in the next couple of weeks, we're going to start hearing some really good fishing reports come in.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's super exciting to hear all that stuff. That's kind of what I'm seeing inshore too. It's definitely everything's transitioning right now, so that's definitely an exciting time of the year, like you're saying.
Definitely see those bluefins moving in, like 1st of April through middle of June, whenever you start seeing those incidental catches coming through the Gulf.
That's right.
This time of year, if you're fishing out of this part of the world, you're going to be out there. You need to be gunned and ready to fish for them. You need to have all your tackle and gear. If you haven't done it, quick reminder, just like my wife tells me to take the garbage out of 2 or 3 times before I actually do it.
That's right.
We went over a couple weeks ago. Get your tackle into somebody. Make sure it's ready to catch the fish of a lifetime.
Yeah, you don't want to lose the fish of a lifetime.
To tell.
Yep, get your top shot on, get your roller guides fixed and your reel service and everything like that. So they've been catching those wahoo over to the east?
I'll tell you what's got me excited right now is like wahoo fishing. Mm-hmm. Especially out of Orange Beach and even Dolphin Island, to some extent, you guys are going to have to run a little bit further east to kind of get to where I really think the fish are located right now. But it's a really easy trip. It's a 25 to 35 mile run out of Orange Beach, Pensacola area. You can cover a lot of ground, and that kind of gets me into thinking what today's tip of the week is going to be. And I think that you got to look at your fishing trip almost like a dual purpose trip, right? You're going to be out there, whether you're high speed trolling or you're pulling shaky baits. I always like to fish in that 250, sometimes 200 to about 450 range. That's right about where the continental shelf starts to come down. You start seeing some hard ledges, some big rocks, and I always say split your screen. So on one screen, you're looking at one part of your screen, you're looking at the bottom 20 feet. And then the rest, you're kind of looking at the whole water column so you can see if there's any fish in the water column. Sometimes there's some fads and stuff out there. Sometimes the wahoo are sitting a little bit up in the water column. So you can sometimes mark those fish. But what I really like to do is, as I'm fishing, I'm just looking at bottom machine the whole time, because you're going to run over so much structure. And I know Richard on his boat has Ray Marine. I have it on my boat. And one of the really things I like about that product is that if I mark that rock or that ledge, I may be covering ground anywhere from 7 knots to 8 knots with a shaky bait on up to maybe 15, 18, even 20 knots with a high speed lure, is that thing's moving across my screen really quickly. Well, you can just stick your finger on the object that you want the coordinates for, hold it there, or give you an option to pull it up, and you'll just save it. What's really cool is you may fish the first half of the day, and maybe you catch a bunch of fish, maybe you strike out. It's wahoo fishing. Sometimes that happens. Mm-hmm. But you take the second half of the day, and if you really want to put some meat in the box, you go back and start fishing those rocks and ledges. You're going to catch some scamps. You're going to catch beeliners. You're going to get some white snapper. All that stuff you can keep right now. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like amberjacks will be open till, August now?
That's right, August 1st.
Yeah, I think so.
And obviously, you can always come back in and catch a limit or triggerfish. They seem to be thick as flies.
That's funny you say that about watching machine, and I've definitely made a habit of just pulling up nothing but my bottom machine when I'm running in the Gulf, and then just use my heading to get where I'm going. And golly, I've found so many hammer spots over the years just paying attention, and even if you run over something, you can grab that screen and rewind your bottom machine almost on some of these newer units that Ray Marine's making. And I usually put 3 or 4 points around one wreck so that I have a good idea of where it was, and 99 times out of 100 you can find it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that.
And the thing is, when you're on these like natural bottom spots, a lot of times when you find one, you start drifting around, you find 3, 4, maybe a dozen more. Mm-hmm. all right there, because the way the rock outcroppings go in the Gulf, if you ever look at a bathymetric chart of that, they're kind of just, there's a lot of stuff in one area. And that's where the Wahoo are too. You know, you're coming from a transition of the continental shelf down to deep water. So it's broken bottom. That's where all the bait's going to be. That's where your predator fish are going to be.
Yeah, that makes sense, man. I like that. Look for fish while you're catching fish or trying to find fish.
That's right.
I like it, man. Well, this week's Offshore Tips is brought to you by the Coastal Connection. You, Angelo Depaola, man. So what you got? What you selling this week?
Well, guys, like I said, it's spring break down here. We obviously have a bunch of spring breakers, but what a lot of people do is they plan their trip, their spring break around shopping for property. And I guess like my property of the week is this. We just listed it. I think it's 5 days on the market now. It's the best deal. And I'm not just using puffery, a real estate term. If you're looking for waterfront property in Orange Beach with big views, just listed a lot on right directly on Wolf Bay, 75 feet wide, 200 foot deep. We've already gone through the wetlands mitigation process. We have surveys. We have the wetlands mitigation report for anybody that's interested. And it's build ready. Just come check it out, get with a builder, have some plans drawn up, and build your dream home with great views and quick access to the Gulf of Mexico. If you're interested, it's on my Facebook page. Go to Coastal Connection, look it up. You'll find it. It's the Angelo Realtor Coastal Connection, or just hit me up on my cell, 850-287-3440. Thank y'all.
Awesome. Thanks, Angelo. We appreciate
Good talking to you, buddy.
Offshore report and the tip, man. I appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, y'all have a great one.
You too.
Wait. All right, well, we got our offshore report from Angelo there. Pretty good report. Next, we're going to go to Captain Patrick Garmison with Ugly Fishing. What's up, Pat?
What's up, Richard? Man. We got Butch here on the line, too?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Rich and Butch, man.
Oh, man. Man, I spent a good bit of time on the boat with Butch earlier. Did he talk about that yet?
Yeah, he did. He's been blabbering about it ever since I got here, about how you and him and Patrick went and caught all these sheep heads.
We got them.
Does the sheep head bite starting to turn on?
I tell you what, I don't know if Butch has talked about this yet or not, but I was blown away by the difference in size that we saw down there. So we went out into the Gulf, and usually when I'm fishing the rigs in the Gulf, it's like the average fish is going to be around that 5-pound range, and you're going to catch the occasional fish that might be 7 to 8 pounds or even 10 pounds. But rarely do you catch them under 3 pounds. And we caught some really big hammers that were like 6, 7, 8 pound fish. And then we caught a ton of little bitty, like barely legal fish that I would expect to see more in the bay or up near the mouths of the rivers. So anyway, that was something interesting that I saw while we were out there. It took a little while for the guys to kind of get the hang of it. I like to fish split shots and tail hook and a little bitty live shrimp, or, I mean, if we would have had some fiddler crabs, I would have liked some fiddler crabs too. But man, it does take a little finesse. It takes a little touch. But once you get dialed in on feeling that bite and lifting up and feeling the fish and the weight of the fish, you can get dialed in on them and start catching them pretty good, can't you, Butch?
Yeah, it was fun, man. Those things fight. I was just telling Richard, I hadn't caught one in, golly, I bet it's been 6 or 7 years since I caught a sheephead, and they were as fun to fight and as delicious as I remembered as well.
Oh, yeah. Golly, they're good.
Yeah. Oh, I love eating those things. And that was the deal earlier this week. But some of the other stuff that I've gotten into here recently is I've either been in the Mississippi Sound or I've been running out of Weeks Bay. Both places I'm catching a ton of redfish, and we're catching a lot of redfish in the lower slot, rat size, but we're also catching a lot of them in the slot. And it's a lot of fun. I take most of them seem to be holding really tight to structure and using live shrimp. And then also I was messing around with some gulps the other day and had a lot of success just throwing a white gulp curly tail in the same areas. But the one thing that I was doing is I was almost working it like a bass guy would work a shaky head. I was trying to keep it close to the pilings or whatever structure we were fishing. And instead of like really hopping it and working it back to me or swimming it, I was just barely just jiggling it and trying to keep it in one spot, and they seem to be reacting to that, coming and picking it up and eating it for me.
Man, that's pretty neat. That's something I've never tried before.
Mm-hmm.
And makes a lot of sense. When we've got this dirty water like we do, you're using something that's scent oriented. Plus, you're putting a bunch of action on the bait and giving the fish a chance to find it versus, like you're saying, hopping it along real fast and getting a lot of bottom relief. You're kind of honing in on these little areas and just jiggling it around. And that their lateral line or their senses are picking that up, like it's a little crab burrowing down or a shrimp trying to burrow down or something in the bottom.
Is that how you were picking up those flounder too, Patrick?
Dude, man,
saw you got some flatties.
Exactly how we were picking up the flounder. We did pick up a couple flounder on some live shrimp, but I had a guy, just me and a dude fishing. We fished together on Sunday. We fished in Mississippi Sound. We caught trout and redfish over there, and then we came to Weeks Bay yesterday. And we caught 2 flounder on the gulps and 1 on the shrimp. The flounder surprisingly were not holding to structure 10, 15 feet off of any piece of structure. They were more on the river ledges or the channel ledges than they were up near the structure, which I found was to be pretty interesting. Because most of the time I find them really as structure oriented as redfish. So. Cool. If you're working some of these piers and docks and grass lines and stuff, don't be afraid to work it a lot further out towards the boat than you normally would.
What about you, Richard? What you been doing this weekend and whatnot?
Man, most of my success has been down in the Mississippi Sound. On the northern part of the Mississippi Sound is one of the only places I've been able to find clean water. I'm seeing a full-fledged springtime bite down there. It's all been shallow water speckled trout. A lot of smaller school-sized fish, I would say, with several keepers mixed in as far as the trout goes. It's been a live shrimp or a voodoo shrimp under a popping cork type of presentation has been the best, but it's really shaping up to be good. Looks like berry steam plants hopefully getting down around 8 feet today, so that should start to clean the bay up, clean the sound up a lot more. Hopefully, as long as we have this kind of warming trend, it's going to be an early spring. Hopefully, I got my fingers crossed we don't get another cold front
for sure. I wonder if we're going to see all the fish that didn't show up north of the I-10 this year.
Mm-hmm.
They got to be somewhere. Where'd they go?
They must all be in the Mississippi Sound at the moment because I've caught over on the eastern shore. We've caught 2 specks in the last 2 days, and we fished a lot of speckled trout areas while we're red fishing, and there's just not a lot of them on the eastern shore right now. I'm hoping that improves. The water looks good. I mean, there's bait over there. Everything looks pretty good. So, I mean, the redfish bite's there. There are some puppy drum. I didn't mention them. There's some puppy drum to be found too. But if you're going specifically for trout, you might be disappointed over on the eastern shore right now. I don't know. I mean, things can change just overnight. Water temperature was around 59 this morning, but it warmed up to 63, and we did catch a trout once that water temperature got over 62. So I'll be anxious to see what things happen, kind of like Monday or Tuesday of next week, or heck, even Saturday or Sunday this weekend. We may see some trout start showing up in some normal areas on the eastern shore.
Yeah, it's just a little tough right now because always say like March and September are 2 of the hardest months to fish for trout.
We're just teetering on that the transition period, where things are about to start changing.
That's right. We're in the middle of a transition right now, so, like today I went out in the Gulf on the Gulf Beach and saw a couple of small schools of mullet out there, so that kind of tells me that some bait's transitioning around to there. Caught a handful of fish, nothing to write home about. Everything looks like it's setting up well to bust loose here for too long. So I think as long as this weather pattern kind of stays consistent, we'll have an early spring.
Yeah, I'm just praying that this rain, I mean, if we get into like a little bit more of a, every 2-week rain pattern or something to let this water clean up, I think we're going to see a lot of fish happening.
Yep.
For sure. All right, well, you guys have the Hey Cap question this week, and Tony Dees is going to get the Fairhope rattle this week. And Tony said, I'm a fair weather weekend inshore angler, so I usually try and hit the known inshore reefs. I've always wondered if chumming would work for inshore species on these reefs. Would the sharks show up too quickly, or can I get some pointers on that? Thanks, Tony, for the question, and what do you guys think about that?
Well, I can certainly say that it can be an effective tactic. But the thing is, you need to have a live well where you can keep your bait fish in the water. And what I want you to do is think about live chumming versus offshore chumming, where chunking or like using a chum churn or something like that. I don't think that's going to be real effective for your inshore fish. If you were using like small finger mullet or pogies or shad or something like that, you can take those guys, load your live well up, but not to the point where they're going to start dying off, and then set up on one of these reefs, throw some out, let them start swimming around, and a lot of times it'll bring some fish to the top that maybe not responding to a traditional popping cork and a shrimp or something like that. So, I mean, I think that's a great question, and it's certainly a worthwhile tactic. Once you get further into the summer, though, when those bull shark pups and the jacks start showing up, you're going to start drawing those guys in just as much as you are your trout, your redfish, and stuff like that. So, if catching sharks and jacks are fun, then, keep doing it. But it may also, hinder your trout bite.
Yeah, something I want to add to that. I agree with Patrick that can be a great tactic, doing the live bait chumming deal. And what I do, and I actually found this thing. I would have bought one, but I found a old wiffle ball bat, oddly enough, floating around in the Mississippi Sound one day, and it's one of the wiffle ball bats that's got about a 3 or 4 inch barrel, and I cut the top of it off, and so I'll take and scoop out my pogies and put them in the end of that bat, and then you can take and throw them. You can get them away from the boat. You're not trying to fling them out of the net or something like that, because you want to throw the bait fish where the fish are. You're not going to be set up right on top of the fish, so you'll kind of do that. And what the cool thing about that, man, is you can really light a school off by that. You know what I mean? A school of fish, you can really get them fired up by just throwing a bunch of bait in the water.
Create your own feeding frenzy.
Yep,
basically.
Your own frenzy.
That's what they're looking for, is schools of bait.
That's right. That's exactly right.
The wiffle ball bat is something that I have on my boat, and I do that as well. And what that also does is, if you take a handful of, say, pogies or shad that are real lively, and you shake them around in that bat and sling them out, they're all stunted, and they're gonna sporadically run across the top of the water. And man, they can really fire off a school. Tell you, a lot of times I'll even do instead of throwing a live bait in there, sometimes you can throw a topwater or a hard bait in there and get them direct to that, and you don't even have to use live bait as far as your actual what you catch your fish on.
Yeah, a lot of times when I get all my pogies in the end of my bat, I'll take my dip net handle and I'll kind of pop it inside the wiffle ball bat a little bit, just to kind of do what you're talking about, stun those baits and make them swim around in circles and flip and do all that. And it's amazing what'll happen,
Cool. Yeah, that's a cool question. Thanks, Tony Dees, and email us at alabama@bestfishingreport.com to get your Fairhope rattle sent to you.
Patrick, is great talking to you, buddy. That's a great report, and look forward to hearing what we got from you next time.
Yes, sir. Well, y'all enjoy the rest of your day, guys. I'm about to wash this boat down and get ready for tomorrow.
Sweet. All right, Captain Patrick. Keep whacking them, bud.
All right, guys. See ya.
All right, Richard. That was a pretty good report from you guys and Captain Patrick Garmison of Ugly Fishing.
Yep, a lot to look forward to.
It is, man. I'm ready.
To look forward to.
Ready to start fishing a little more. I've been getting a little bit more than usual for me, and I like that. Hopefully I can get a lot more this summer in.
There we go.
All right, man. We're going to head on down to the pier and shore tip, the Pier Pounder. How we doing, Mr. David?
Good, Butch. Glad to be getting outdoors some of this spring-like weather. It's right on cue.
That's right. Glad to have something to report.
Early spring.
Yeah, we were talking about that a little while ago. It's just been nice. We've had a nice little stretch of weather here this week. So if you've been able to get out on the water, man, it's probably been pretty good.
I'm not ready for a 100-degree summer yet. Let's take a little longer in this cooler weather, though.
Yeah, no triple digits yet for me either.
I'm not ready for the 100-degree.
When you get fat and old like me, it's like you can wait a little while with this cooler weather. It's nice.
This fluffy season was not good to me. I got to lose a couple lbs before I start sweating and take the old shirt off.
Yeah,
it won't be long.
What's been going on, Beer Pounder?
Well, things have finally kind of kicked off. We're really seeing some spring-type pattern. The big news this week was the Spanish mackerel showing up with some consistency throughout the week. They've been caught every day since the weekend, and
Awesome.
Some good size ones too. Some of them up to 2 pounds, which for early run Spanish is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
They're easily caught on jigs like the local loony jigs and the hex head jigs that are made locally that the bait shops sell. And you can also catch them. I like to use spec rigs when the fish are small. And also the gotcha plugs are real popular. And they've been effective because when those early run Spanish come in, typically they're deep. And people tend to get a little excited and they jig that jig up a little bit too high for them. And what I've learned is to let it fall. And usually the first 2 or 3 times you snap your wrist when you're retrieving that, giving that jig a good bounce up off the bottom is when you get hit. And,
Yeah, we caught some.
I'll jig it up to where I can see it, and then I'll open the bail and let it drop back down to the bottom. They've been catching them anywhere from just outside the sandbar in water about 15 feet deep all the way out to the end where the water's 25 feet deep.
Yeah, we were catching them in 45 foot on a rig on Monday on
There you
live
go.
shrimp. Yeah, we caught a good many of them. I don't know if I've ever eaten Spanish mackerel. Hank Shaw, the hunter, angler, gardener, cook, he made some tamales
Ooh.
out of those Spanish mackerel. He did like a chunk of filet, maybe like 4 by 3, and then cut some peppers and laid them acrossways and then put them in a tamale, and we smoked them on the green egg. Psh, get out of
All
here.
right.
Anyway, sorry to interrupt you. So what
Those
else?
have always been one of my mainstays, even from the time when my kids were little. They would call them fish fingers. I'd fillet them out so there wasn't any bones in it. We could either bread them and fry them, or they're great pan fried as well. People all the time talk about how good a fish tacos they make too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's good bite meat.
Yep.
What else is going on the pier? Any redfish, speckled trout? What else?
There have been some trout hanging around the pier, and I was going to get to that a little bit later, but there hadn't been a whole lot of them caught. The sheepshead have finally turned on a bit, and there hadn't been a lot. It hasn't been a really strong season for them around the pier. There's been some beautiful fish caught 10 pounds or better, which is great for off the pier. Usually any over 6 pounds is pretty exceptional.
Mm-hmm.
So if we get an 8 or 9 or 10 pounder, it really raises some eyebrows. And another unusual catch was a buddy of mine from Foley the other day caught a rabbit fish, a smooth puffer fish. That was just over 10 pounds, and he didn't realize it at the time, but that would have probably qualified as a state record.
Oh, my
the
goodness.
state record smooth puffer is just over 10 pounds.
That's tough.
It'd be my dream to catch any state record. I'd take like a state record hardhead catfish. You know?
There you go.
I know. I would be so tickled to have that, man. I anytime I catch something weird, I'm always checking the book, man. Make sure I don't miss out.
Yeah.
But
That is a neat list to have handy. Yeah.
That's pretty neat. Are you guys seeing a lot of life out on the beach? Is there like any bait schools starting to show up?
Yes. Yeah. A guy posted a video the other day of the pelicans just dive bombing probably a school of those striped anchovies that had been pressed up against the sandbar.
Mm-hmm.
And they were just pummeling them, just working them over. And I've seen that a couple of times on the beach as well. And it's usually, this early in the year, it's a combination of Spanish mackerel, bluefish, maybe some bonita or true bonitas, one or the other, that are pushing them like that. The only jacks that are present now are just pompano, and even they'll get in, chase those little glass minnows sometimes in the surf zone as well.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I did a little bit of looking around on the beach down to the west of Dolphin Island today. Not a whole lot of life on the beach. Out off of the beaches, you can see some of those loons and some of these other migratory birds that come down here this time of year. Working over big schools of what look like pogies on my bottom machine, but no little bait on the west side just yet. Hopefully that's soon to come. Maybe once this water starts
warming
to clean
up a little bit.
Yeah, warms up and the dirty water kind of presence gets out of here.
For sure.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention too. From Fort Morgan eastward, the water has been very clear this week. In fact, we were having trouble earlier in the week catching fish from shore in Gulf Shores and Orange Beach, as far as like pompano and stuff like that. Now, and the pattern that we've had through the winter has kind of continued in that it's like pompano and trout and stuff like that have been tending to congregate around the pier where there's a little bit of bait holding around there because of the lights of the pier and also like those birds that you mentioned, Richard.
Mm-hmm.
They'll press those fish, those school fish sometimes, and they'll tend to seek out any kind of structure that they can kind of use as a hiding place, like around pier pilings and stuff.
Right.
They like that especially to stay away from those loons and water turkeys and stuff that are chasing them.
Mm-hmm. That's a great report, Mr. David. We'd like to get that onshore tip from you each week, and this week's onshore tip is brought to us by Trotter Marine. Trotter Marine is now having a major closeout sale to make room for the 2019 inventory. Save money on Crestliner aluminum boats and Triton fiberglass bass boats. They guarantee the best service in Mobile and Baldwin County, and they have 18 years of making you their number one priority. They have a full line of truck accessories to choose from as well. Give Ray or Burns a call at 251-679-5959. Come by Trotter Marine in Satsuma on Highway 43 or visit them online at trottermarinellc.net. What you think about a tip this week, Mr. David?
Well, one opportunity that I had this week was after I'd caught some Spanish mackerel and I got ready to leave, I thought, well, I have some live shrimp, and the sheepshead weren't particularly cooperative that day, so I had plenty of live shrimp left over. And I saw a school of trout, and so I started casting the live shrimp to them, and the specs weren't really interested. The water's still kind of cool. It's right at that transition where they start getting active. But there were some pompano that were working around them. I was fishing my ultralight, and you could feel the tap, tap, tap when the shrimp started jumping away from a fish. And I thought, well, here he comes. And the next thing I know, a pompano had chased that shrimp all the way up to the surface out of about 5 or 6 feet of water. And the shrimp was jumping around on top of the water, and you can see the pompano swimming circles around him trying to get a bead on that shrimp so that he could swallow it and get his lunch, his supper. And I ended up doing that 3 times, caught 3 pompano, and I got to see 2 of them, chase the bait to the surface. Then he swam back down to the bottom. I opened the bail, let the bait swim back down to the bottom. Bam. Then he found it and ran off. And so what I would, remind anglers is to be, especially now as the fish are starting to become more active, be aware of any of those little tips that the fish are going to give you. And sometimes when you're fishing for one species, something else may pop up. So be ready to take advantage of that by maybe changing your tactic just a little bit. And, it can make the difference between blanking out like I would have if I would have just stuck with the specs, or staying with that pattern to where I was pulling that shrimp up off the bottom and then letting him swim back down to the bottom. And those pompano would see that and they'd zero in on it and start chasing the shrimp around.
Sure. He was kind of telling you what he wanted to see to be able to eat it.
Yeah, the thing I like about your experience there is that you're actually paying attention to what was going on. Mm-hmm. I see so many times where people catch fish and they're kind of like, well, I don't know what happened. I don't know why I caught this thing here or there or what it was. And man, a lot of times if you just concentrate a little harder and pay attention to what's going on, you can really start to put a pattern together like you did and catch in a pompano limit 3 fish.
3 fish,
yes, I
which
mean,
it can happen pretty quick if you get on a pattern.
That's what's cool. You're just sitting there just paying attention to what you're doing and caught your limit of fish. Man, that's the difference between a
good day and a bad day.
Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's pretty neat, man. Well,
that's a great tip, Mr. David.
Well, Pier Pounder, is great talking to you, buddy. We appreciate the report, and we'll see you out there soon.
All right, guys. It's a pleasure always.
All right, have a good one.
Pounder.
You too.
All right, Butch. Well, that's a great onshore report.
I love hearing from the Pier Pounder.
From Pier Pounder. I've known Pier Pounder.
He's a good dude, man.
I've known him for a long time. He was a patient of my father's in his dental office for a long time.
That's cool.
I've known him for a long time. But anywho, I'll be glad to introduce our next.
We'll change it up a little bit.
Our next guest today is going to be Scott Bannon, Director of Alabama Marine Resources. How you doing today, Scott?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for the opportunity to come on and
have some discussion about fish.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for being on. It's always a good day whenever you can talk about fishing with your buddies. That's what I always say.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's even better when you get to go fishing with your buddies.
That is true. That is true as well.
Well, Scott, looks like we got some things coming down the pipe from the state this year. Some new changes to some inshore and some offshore stuff. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
The biggest topics are spotted sea trout, or speckled trout as we like to call them, and flounder, and a potential reef fish endorsement for offshore fishing. And so what we've been doing is hosting some public meetings for different user groups to explain why we're looking at making some changes and show some stock assessment information that we have for spotted sea trout and for flounder. So we've had about 4 or 5 different public meetings, and we're going to finish up with a charter meeting. And some people ask, well, why are we dividing up the meetings? Are we keeping something from people? And we're really doing it in separate segments because it affects each segment differently. And if you try and have all of that discussion of different user groups between commercial, recreational, and charter, it just gets to be really complicated, and it would make it a really long meeting. And so our goal has been to solicit information from the public. We have some different options on the table for some management tools, and see what the public feels and what they're seeing. So with speckled trout, we're looking at an assessment that says that we need to be concerned, but they're not terrible shape. We just need to probably make some adjustments to ensure that we continue to have great fishing. And as I always say, I want to make fishing better for my kids. And now flounder, that's going to be a little tougher push. I think they're in bad shape. I think that's a critical fishery for us, and we're going to have to make some hard decisions. And that particular fishery has a commercial component, which is a little bit more of us to get into, that we're affecting a recreational activity and a financial fish for some of our local residents. So
that's real interesting, and I'd be glad to share my thought process on at least the speckled trout side, I guess, and the flounder as well. We've seen a dramatic drop off in the flounder as far as
people have been talking about that for a couple of years.
Right. And it's like we'll get a little bit of a bump one year and then they're right back down again the next. And hopefully through this effort, we can maybe start to gain some ground on that. But as far as speckled trout go, I've seen a lot of really good years and I've seen some really bad years. I think it attributes to we have a lot more pressure on the fish from the recreational side.
Well, whenever, stuff got tight with snapper and the seasons got all weird, I think a ton of people just decided to start inshore fishing a lot more.
Yep.
They did. We even have some data that shows trips from the 1990s at about 50,000 speckled trout trips a year to the mid-2000s to 500,000 trips. That's a 10-time increase in an activity. So it's that many more people are targeting a species. And like you said, that's a lot of pressure. So you have to manage the people in order to maintain the species.
That's right.
Yeah. With that big a jump, there has to be some adjustments.
There does.
Has to be.
There does. And one thing I like to bring up when it comes to this topic is there's a lot of companies and people who are like this show right here. We're helping people catch more fish and become more effective with social media and technology of electronics and trolling motors and shallow water anchors and fishing lures and line. Everything is getting better on the fishing end to help us catch more fish. And as a result, we're catching more fish. But we're also, nobody's doing anything for the fish.
Right.
You know what I mean? The fish are just
Absolutely.
They're just getting beat on.
As you said, the technology's there. I mean, it's to the point where I can catch fish. So it's really come a long way. And so, we're looking at, there's a couple of different things you can do to manage a species. You can adjust the bag limit, in which speckled trout, it's at 10 per person right now. You can increase the minimum size limit, which is at 14 is the current minimum size. And you could also look to create a slot limit like we do for red drum, where you say, well, you can keep fish inside this limit. And then if we were to do that, we would give a trophy fish over that. And some of the different things that those management tools do are put more mamas in the system is the simplest term. So if you raise that bottom end and raise the minimum size limit, you have a lot of younger fish that get released into the system. And then if you do a slot limit,
where you put a cutoff at 22 to 24 inches, somewhere in there. You put those bigger females who do hold about 5 times the number of eggs. So there is some benefit to having them in there. We don't see a large number of those fish over 22 inches. Our survey data says it's about 3%. And again, it's not an exact science. It's just an estimate.
Mm-hmm.
But those different measures could be combined. We could do one. We have some data that we present, and then we will put it online once we finish our last meeting so that people can see it and still make comments. But it'll kind of give you an idea of what different links would do and what the change, if you were to add a slot limit, what it would do for the resource. And so the goal is that if you move that lower end up, at first people say, well, it's harder to catch those fish. Well, down the road, that should become the new norm, and then you're happy to catch those bigger fish, and you should do it on a more regular basis. And so it kind of moves things up a little bit. But so that's the things we're talking about with the public. And so, like I said, you're out there all the time. So what are your thoughts?
I really like the idea of the slot limit a lot. Too. I look at other resources along the Gulf Coast. You look like at some places in Florida and some places in Texas. You have a lot of guides in those areas who advertise like a trophy trout, trophy speckled trout, which I would say is anything bigger than probably like 26 inches or so is what I would consider a trophy. And the number of big fish that you see.
That's a high bar.
I know. Well, the number of big fish that you see come out of Texas and even down like in Mosquito Lagoon and some of those areas in Florida, these guys are catching a handful of 30-inch trout a year. You know what I mean? Which is incredible.
That is.
And I think Alabama really has the habitat to see that type of fishery happen here. And that's what I'd like to see it become more of a destination speckled trout place.
Because we got them.
I think we do. They're extremely hard to come by, and I think doing a slot.
And they're beat up.
Yeah, I think a slot would really help that.
Yep, I like that a lot.
Sure, because what we see is, a lot of people fish for them, and we're not seeing those bigger fish as often. And like you said, we have the habitat. The challenge in Alabama and Mississippi is very similar to us, is that our habitat is very accessible to people. So those fish don't really have anywhere they go that's not accessible to an angler. Whereas Louisiana, and I've been talking with the folks in Louisiana, they have some concerns with trout as well. So they're going to be addressing it. And, they've had a loss of habitat, even though they have lots of it and it's harder for people to get to it. The reduction in habitat has a little bit of an effect. And the same thing, it's a lot of effort out there. So you're right. Those management changes should address, getting larger fish in the system and more fish into the system, because your goal is to put more spawning fish into that system, so that eventually it gets to be more common to catch bigger fish and you consistently catch larger fish.
Yep, and I really like how y'all's thought process is with both ways of that. The slot plus maybe raising the minimum limit, because the minimum size, because that's a whole nother year class of fish that you have underneath the minimum size. And so, like you said a second ago, Scott, it's going to take a little while to catch up to where you're consistently catching 16-inch fish all the time. But I think it's definitely it won't take very long to see that take place.
We don't think so either, with the growth rate of those fish and with the spawning potential for those fish that get up to around 15 or 16 inches. It should rebound fairly quickly and then maintain a very consistent fishery. The hard part to determine is, how much effort can we really put on a fishery? I would have never thought we would have put the amount of effort into red snapper fishing last year that we did, but our effort doubled from 2017 to 2018. So fishing is a way of life in Alabama, and this is a place people come to experience a variety of fishing, and so it's important to us. It's important to you guys, people that make a living out there. So we have to take this serious, and so we're going to make some change. Once we complete these meetings, we'll make some decisions in-house and have a discussion with our Conservation Commissioner, Chris Blankenship, and we'll make a presentation to the Conservation Advisory Board on May the 4th. That meeting will be held at the the Lodge at Gulf State Park, our new meeting facility down there. And it's available for public comment. People can come in and register at 8:30 in the morning. and they can speak for 3 minutes and express their concerns. But we'll provide the advisory board with kind of a summary of our meetings and then what our recommendations are. They'll vote to either agree with it, or if they disagree with it, we have some follow-up conversation. And we don't necessarily have to go out to the public and do this. We can make these decisions ourselves, but since we do have some flexibility, we thought it was important to go share with the public what we're seeing and what we're thinking and see what works with them. So flounder is kind of the same way. They're getting hard to find, and there needs to be some change in that. So when people get the opportunity to tell us what they're seeing out there, that's important, because our data says we're seeing this. Does that correlate with what the angler is seeing out there on the water? And so far it has. The decline is evident to everybody. There is a little bit of a concern if we move the minimum size up that it affects Gulf flounder, because southern flounder and Gulf flounder are two different species. We don't see as many Gulf flounder, but there is an impact. So our staff will have some discussions on that this next week. But there are no easy decisions, but they have to be made in order to maintain both of these fisheries.
Yeah,
that's right.
I really like how you guys are taking public comment.
Me too. It's a big deal.
For consideration. I was just last night reading over an essay that my son had written, and I saw the phrase "no taxation without representation." And I explained to him what that was, and that's exactly what this is. And I really think that's why we have such a great country we live in. For things exactly like this.
This is a resource for the citizens of Alabama and for the citizens of this country. I mean, I truly do look at it that way, and we're just given the responsibility to take care of it. I even go back as far as God created the waters, and then He created the creatures and told man to take care of it. So we've had this obligation for a long time. So I take it very seriously. With people wanting to continue to participate and bring their friends here, I want to be able to provide that. And reducing the bag limit, we talked about that a little bit. That may not be the best solution, but it is a possible option in there. But I have some concerns about when we take something away from people, it is very difficult to give it back. And I hear that from the public, and I hear it from myself. And when I go to these meetings, especially when we're talking about federal fisheries, and so I do tell people I'm a little bit reluctant to reduce a bag limit because a lot of people are not getting their limit right now. But with these other options, and some people are very, very supportive of a bag limit, and they feel like it's a more responsible thing. So we're kind of pooling all that together with what the science tells us, with what the people tell us, and how much flexibility we have in there. And do we want a quicker return or a little slower return on the management decisions?
Sure.
Well, Scott, we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. It was a lot of good, valuable information.
For sure.
And
you got to adapt with the times. I mean, things are different than they were 20 years ago.
That's right.
They are. And if people want to provide some comment, they're more than welcome to email me. My email address is on outdooralabama.com. Just click on saltwater fishing, and you can find me under the contact us page, and send me or Kevin Anson, our chief biologist. Send us your comments. We print them out, put them in a folder, and we do consider them. It's and I consider every comment, even the ones when you call me names. I understand. So go ahead and send them to us.
Well, we appreciate it, Scott. Thanks for being on, man, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, guys.
All
right, Richard. That's gonna wrap it up this week, man. I like talking to Mr. Scott. I think he's a public servant. I think he's here for the people, and I like the conservation minded man. We got to change things if we want our kids to be able to enjoy what we did and better.
Yep. Scott's a great guy. He has a lifetime of service to our fishery. He's always had a real level head about things.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Like he's out there for everyone's best interest, I think.
Yep, sounds like it, man.
Yep.
What'd you learn this week?
The only word I can think of to wrap everything up real tight is transition as far as the fishing goes. Is we're definitely in a transition period.
Mm-hmm.
Some areas we're catching fish where it's a springtime pattern. Other areas have not turned on to that springtime pattern yet. You heard Angelo earlier talking about the wahoo and stuff are starting to come in right there off of the continental shelf, and the little things that he's keying in on, finding some structure to be trolling over and whatnot. Patrick, he's hitting on structure.
Yep.
So
Pier pounder.
Pier
Obviously,
pounders.
got some structure there at the
No,
pier.
yeah. But
man, what tied in for me wasn't necessarily on this show, but you and Patrick, we've had multiple long conversations about cadence, and the fish is going to tell you what he wants. You may throw 5 times, with a twitch reel or twitch fall reel, and then change it up that one time, and he'll smash it.
That's right. And for Patrick, it was that little jiggling
That's
deal
right.
he was doing on the redfish, and
that was this show.
And for the flounder,
and then the pier pounder was talking about just watching your bait, paying attention, which is the same thing as cadence.
Mm-hmm.
You're just paying attention to your bait, being in tune with your bait, and giving the fish is going to show you what he wants. And that pompano trying to eat that shrimp with all his might, and then the pier pounder, just kind of giving it to him and putting it down the bottom, how he can, grab it from the tail or however he wants to eat it. So that was my tie-in for the week.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty neat. It makes sense, too, what Pier Pounder did. We can talk about that in his thing. But, you drop the weight to the bottom, and the shrimp can't get away from the weight.
Can't go very much further than that.
And then the pompano can get it versus if he's up on the surface, the shrimp can kind of get away. So.
That's right, man. Well, I appreciate you co-hosting with me this week. I'm not sure what old big man was doing. There's no telling with the old Joe.
Hey, I'm always glad to be on this show, man. This is always a ton of fun. Get to talk to some spectacular folks in the area.
Yep.
And who can beat this weather on Foul River today?
It's nice, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's nice out here. I had to take off your hoodie a minute ago. It's getting a little warm. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up this week. You guys, please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like us to email you the podcast every week, just head over to greatdaysoutdoors.com/ASFR, and we'll send you the new show each week. Keep whacking them. This week's Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report has been brought to you by Geico. Call Ron Davis, Geico agent, at 251-445-0053 or visit him online at geico.com/mobile-al. Also brought to you by Coastal Conservation Association of Alabama. Check them out at ccaalabama.org.
And also KillerDock. Are you suffering from dock dysfunction? Check out a full line of dock enhancement at KillerDock.com. That's KillerDock.com.
This week's Saltwater Fishing Report is brought to you by Angelo Depaola, the Coastal Connection with EXP Realty, your boating and beach property specialist. Check me out on Facebook at Angelo Depaola Realtor, the Coastal Connection, or call me direct at 850-287-3440.
And also Trotter Marine. Call Ray or Burns at 251-679-5959 or check them out at TrotterMarineLLC.com.
This is Captain Richard Rutland, and this report is brought to you by Cold Blooded Fishing. You can find us at www.coldbloodedfishing.com.
Also, Ugly Fishing Charters with Captain Patrick Garmison. You can check us out at uglyfishing.com or call us at 251-747-1554.